Today with me on the show, I have Dr. Mike Van Thielen, and I know you're really going to enjoy this discussion. He brings years, decades of experience, particularly in the field of biohacking. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Mike. He's a PhD, holistic nutrition, biohacker, mentor, health and wellness expert, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, international keynote and motivational speaker, and world record holder in swimming, which I'm really excited to dive into that aspect. He's been involved in optimal health practices, anti-aging and regenerative medicine, sports performance, nutrition, and supplementation for over 3 decades. As a top swimmer in his native Belgium, he gained interest in optimizing health and athletic performance. Dr. Mike graduated from the University of Brussels in Belgium in 1993 with a bachelor's degree in physical ed, and in 1995 with a master's degree in physical therapy. He served as the assistant coach and physical therapist for Belgian Olympic swimmers in preparation for the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta. After having saved $400, and I love this story, Dr. Mike packed a backpack and moved to Florida in 1997. And after managing several management clinics, he pursued his Master's of Science in Oriental Medicine and his Bachelor's of Science in Professional Health Studies from the Florida College of Integrative Medicine. Dr. Mike is a licensed physical therapist, a licensed acupuncture physician, and a doctor of Oriental medicine with certifications in injection therapy, homeopathy, Chinese herbal medicine, and non-invasive cosmetic procedures. Besides being well-versed in various health applications, Dr. Mike also holds business and marketing certifications, and he has quite a bit of business experience and a proven record of establishing and developing successful business operations. He has owned many anti-aging clinics in Central and Northeast Florida and developed a system to create customer loyalty that boosted customer referrals and resulted in retaining more than 90% of customers. In 2008, he founded a company that certified healthcare professionals in health and wellness, weight loss, non-invasive cosmetic procedures, and trained over 1,000 professionals in 5 years. Dr. Mike is the author of the revolutionary book, Health for Life User Manual, and is featured in the book Motivational Speakers America, the indispensable guide to America's business and motivational speakers. He is a top international keynote speaker alongside celebrities such as Les Brown and Brian Tracy. In addition, Dr. Mike is the founder of Health Freedom Movement and, as I mentioned before, a sought-after speaker. In 2019, he published Stem Cells One-on-One, a consumer guide, and a short autobiography as well. And he's gone on to create the IZOD Method. I think I'm saying that correctly, that has been featured on Fox, ABC, NBC, Google News, and over 300 channels. He is also an All-American current world record holder for the 4x100 meter freestyle, 160 plus, and he holds 31 U.S. national titles and 2 YMCA national records. He is currently the Chief Medical Officer at Clarigen Z and the Executive Director of Physical Therapy, Wellness, and Regenerative Medicine at Emerge Healthcare in Melbourne. And as I mentioned before, he is a biohacker, and we are going to dive into biohacking quite a bit in this episode. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mike.
Well, what an introduction. Thank you for having me, Carol.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. You have so much experience. You're one of these guests that, as I was reading through everything you've accomplished over the decades, it's so vast. I was like, where do I start? And what I would really like to hear initially is your story, your origin story of how you came to be in the U.S., why you came here, and how you got into pain management.
Well, I grew up in a small town in Belgium. Single mom, worked very hard to provide for my brother and I. So we weren't very well off. So if I wanted something, I had to earn it myself. So even when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, I asked my mom to bring me to the flea market where I then would sell stuff that I found on my grandma's attic to make a few dollars here and there. So the entrepreneurship was almost, I had to be there in order for me to have a few dollars here and there to do what I wanted to do. But then my competitive edge came from somewhere else. I had to verify this with my mother because, again, I was young. But apparently, the school system is different there. But when I was in elementary school, I was the fastest runner of the class. I was on a soccer team, basketball team, you name it. But I lost in swimming because a good friend of mine was part of the local swim team. So I couldn't win. So when I asked my mother how I ended up swimming, she said, well, you lost to him and your solution was to join the swim team also. And so that's where I found my passion for swimming. And that's a sport where you have to put in a lot in order to reach high goals. So ended up going to the University of Brussels for physical education because I loved sports. I don't know if that was the best choice, but I graduated, then decided to do physical therapy after, got my master's in physical therapy. And that's when I started traveling as a technical assistant and physical therapist for the Belgian Olympic swim team. And that's how I ended up also preparing these athletes for Atlanta in '96. At the time, they were short of physical therapists in the United States. So there were recruiters contacting me. And so I had to save $400. That was the minimum kind of to get an airline ticket and get here. Packed my backpack and I came over here to quote unquote live the American dream. Needless to say, with no coaches or mentors, I got knocked down quite often. But my motto quickly became I never lose, I win or I learn. And so ended up in physical therapy at first, but saw that there's a lot more to health than conventional medicine and physical therapy. So that's when I went back to school to the Florida College of Integrative Medicine, a 3-year program, got my license in acupuncture, board certified in Chinese herbs, homeopathy, and all that stuff. But after another 1,000 patients, I got a little bit frustrated because yes, these modalities, let's say, are less invasive and harmful than conventional medicine, meaning drugs, injections, and surgeries. But I really didn't get the long-lasting results I was hoping for either with my patients. So that's when I decided I had to go back to basics. And so I got my PhD in holistic nutrition, and I also started to look at Mother Nature and see what animals in the wild were doing to stay so healthy. Because Mother Nature doesn't lie. And by combining those two, I get very confident that I can help people, regardless what their condition is. So that's when I started writing books, doing motivational keynote speaking, etc. Ended up having anti-aging clinics, ended up being the CEO of a stem cell clinic, regenerative medicine clinic. And then COVID came, right? So we closed the doors of the stem cell clinic. And I really had to search a little bit myself what it is that I needed to do in life, what my superpowers are, what my purpose in life was. And so I decided I needed to start helping people again, regain control of their health, optimize their health. And then step number 3 is what I'm regarding an expert in today's objectively reversing your biological age, which is biohacking. So increasing your lifespan, because I believe today, anybody that implements the tips and strategies that are available to everybody, not just the elite, I believe can easily become 100 years of age, but being able to do what a 40-year-old does. In other words, traveling, hiking, whatever it is that you like to do, and that's lifespan. So in order to do that, we need to objectively reverse our biological age. So today I'm a coach, a mentor. I help people with their health, with their business goals, and also with their personal life. And I also do the same, not just with individuals, but with corporations, because we know we got all these corporate wellness programs, but if you look close at them, they don't mean anything. What they do is they check your BMI and your cholesterol, and they put a gym somewhere that nobody uses. That's really not what it should be. So I'm incorporating biohacking spaces, and I'm improving productivity, focus, and engagements of all the team members. So that's what I do today, Carol.
I love this story. I really do. And the way that when things weren't working, you found a way, like with the swimming. I think that's really an entrepreneurial mindset. It's like, okay, that didn't work. Let me back up and approach it from a different
Yeah.
direction here, which I love. Now, with longevity, this subject fascinates me. Most of my listeners are women over 50. I'm 62. I've really gotten into the pillars of longevity within these last couple of years, just following
Mhm.
physicians such as Dr. Peter Attia, for example, who excellent podcast. But what do you consider the pillars of longevity? What are the things that people should be addressing?
Well, we can talk generally, but obviously, when I have clients, I really have to categorize them first. And when it comes to health, I have three categories. Unfortunately, most of them fall in category number one. We need to regain control first. People are overweight, they're in pain, or they're diagnosed with some kind of a medical condition. So we need to get them back to normal, and we need to eradicate those conditions and balance the body. That's step number one. Step number two, once we're back to quote unquote normal, we need to optimize health. We need to incorporate lifestyle modifications so we can feel fit and vital and strong again, in control of our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being. And only then, step number three, only optimal health would then be the ideal foundation to maximize the benefits of biohacking, upgrading your body, your mind, and your life, objectively reversing that biological age. So I believe at each stage there are different modalities and strategies that we need to implement, and they don't always stay the same because we progress through those three stages. But I think today, just like anything else, there is no silver or magic bullet. And in order to really get great results, we need to establish a foundation. So in the latest book, or in my latest book that you mentioned, the IZOD Method, Unleashing Your Superpower, I do talk about 7 foundations that everybody can work on, and that don't really cost any money or very little financial input. So the first one would be water. We need to drink clean water. And my water, I'm looking at it, is hydrogen infused. We can talk about hydrogen later if you like to, but it's hydrogen gas infused water. And the reason we need to drink clean water and a lot of water is because we are a plumbing system. We have a cardiovascular system. We have a lymphatic system, which is part of our immune system. And so if you think of a plumbing system, it needs to move, otherwise it clogs up. So we need to hydrate and we need to move. So water becomes very important, number one, and we can, make sure we drink enough water and have clean water. Number two, air, right? Oxygen. Of course, most of us spend too much time indoors, recirculated air, so we need to do everything we can to spend more minutes and more hours outside, especially weekends, during lunch, dinner. Why sit inside if it's not raining outside? And all those types of things. But 99% of us are breathing wrongly. Most of us are shallow chest breathers, and we breathe through the mouth. The mouth is here to eat and speak. Normal breathing happens through the nose, in for 5 counts and out for 6 counts. And if you think about that, we only would breathe in 6 times per minute versus through the mouth between 16 and 22. So there's an immediate 300% increase in effectiveness or efficiency of our oxygen, getting it deeper into the body, in the lower lobes, and the exchange with oxygen happens much better. So oxygen may be the number one biohacker if we learn to breathe properly. So breath work, again, doesn't cost much, or doesn't have to cost much. You can Google on YouTube, or my favorite app that you can download for free is The Breath Source. So any smart device, The Breath Source, and the top world's breath masters are on there, and you just get some free lessons and start to breathe properly. So water, oxygens. Number three, movement. We just talked about movement. Again, we're a plumbing system. Yes, we need to hydrate, but we can't sit still. That's when things stagnate. That's when we get in trouble. So that doesn't mean we have to go to the gym or play organized sports, but we need to move, whether it's walking or dancing or playing with the kids or the dogs. It doesn't matter. You can't sit still. And if the weather prevents you from going outside and move, well, there's technologies out there like vibration platforms, mini trampolines, whatever it takes. That body needs to move, right? That's number three. The opposite of movement is rest and sleep. During rest and sleep, we not just repair, but we replenish, renew, regenerate. I always explain it with the example of a supermarket. If the people at night don't restock the shelves, 2 days later, there is nothing to buy. There is no supermarkets, right? Everything's gone. It's the same with the body. During the night, we need to replenish, restock, repair. And that only happens in a deep delta sleep. And most of us do not get enough sleep or not get deep enough sleep. So we need to do whatever it takes to sleep better, sleep deeper, get into the delta stage. I mean, today it's pretty simple. There's power routine, there's things that we can do to facilitate that process. So that's number 4. Number 5 is light. Light stimulates all biological and physiological processes in our body. So again, going outside, not just for the fresh air, but also the sunlight. If you think about it, all the beautiful, colorful creatures live around the equator and in the Amazon, and all the creatures that don't get light, such as a mole or creatures like that, have no color, they're blind, they're fragile, they're not exuberant and vibrant. So light stimulates all processes. We need a lot of sunlight. Of course, we can substitute with artificial light, far infrared, those types of things, which we can do if we need to. Like if you live in Iceland and it's 24-hour dark during the winter, then there would be a solution. But otherwise, again, natural sunlight would be the best solution. Number 6 would be diet, obviously. We're talking about exposure of toxins, but we, take a lot of toxins into man-made foods and man-made drinks. And so we need to upgrade our diet to reduce toxins and at the same time increase the nutrients that fight free radical damage, systemic inflammation, and repair our DNA. So we need to upgrade that. And then the last one is probably the most important one, which many times is overlooked, the mind. We need to upgrade our mind. Our mind not only controls our body and most of our diseases, but also sets the stage or creates or is the blueprint of our future, of what's going to happen to us. And it's underestimated. And it was very difficult to, I remember probably 2 decades ago when I was swimming and stuff too. It's like, oh, Mike, you need to meditate. It's really going to help. So I tried to meditate, but I can't clear my mind just by meditating. And so when something doesn't work or you don't feel a benefit, you give up quickly. But today there's so many strategies and even technologies available that a total novice within 1 or maximum 2 sessions could experience some type of a benefit, tapping into another brainwave or feeling a meditative state. And once you feel a benefit, you want to explore further, right? And today we can do that. For example, when we talk about meditation, for me, breath work really worked very well because I'm so focused on my breath that my mind's cleared of anything else and I suddenly get into a meditative state. So breath work or visualization or manifestation, learning to control and manage your emotions and your feelings, those types of things become important. And most important, I think, for most people that need to overcome a disease or have a goal and a dream, we need to work on our belief system and eliminate any false core beliefs. Because if we are labeled, I just started working with another cancer patients, if we are labeled with a disease, a diagnosis subconsciously, that's our blueprint now. And so the doctor will be eventually right that you're going to die for cancer if that's what you believe. So we need to change that belief system. And we need to come to a point where there's no doubt in your mind that you're going to conquer that disease, that you're going to reach your goals, that you're going to, write that masterpiece of music, whatever it may be. Because if there's doubt in your mind, the universe has 2 options, failure or success. If there's no doubt, the universe only has 1 option, a big win. So mind is my 7th foundation that people usually overlook, but we really have to work on because it has a very underestimated effect, not just on your body and your health, but also on where your life is going.
I could not agree more. The mind is so powerful. And we have those limiting self-beliefs, self-talk that we can carry
Mm-hmm.
for decades, that maybe it goes all the way back to childhood. I know I've had things like that where I finally had to say, is that true, Carol? No, that's not true. You're just telling yourself this story is looping around in your brain. And when I removed that, that was when I was able to write my first book. That was when I was able to start my podcast because all of that chatter, that limiting
Yeah.
self-belief had been pushed aside. And then I agree with you on, getting a diagnosis because I remember I was diagnosed with autoimmune when I was 54, 53,
Mm-hmm.
54, right around in there. And initially thinking, oh, I'm sick, like taking the weight of that on. And it began to affect me physically, mentally. And at the time I was competing in bodybuilding and I had to really move past that in order to keep competing and doing what I enjoyed and change that perception. And then, of course, address the lifestyle habits such as really
Sure.
nutrition, primarily, that underlie that.
Yeah, no, I mean, a belief is just a thought that we keep thinking and knowing that we can change it anytime we want to. It's that simple.
It is. It is. I mean, even if it's to sit down with pen and paper, and that's been helpful for me, and kind
Mhm.
of write what I'm believing and then look and go, oh, wow, there's something about it being on the paper that was helpful for me.
Sure, for
I
sure.
I also love that you talked about the breath because that's something I've struggled with my entire life. When I used to run marathons, was very competitive there, bodybuilding. And if I'm not careful, I start this shallow breathing that's too quick. And then pretty soon the anxiety comes
Yes.
along with that.
No, breathing is one of the things that obviously is the first thing we do when we're born and the last thing we do when we die. And yet the vast majority of us doesn't know how to do it properly. But the changes it can make on a biological, physiological level are just astonishing. And it just takes a little bit of practice, not much practice. You just, you know, again, today it's so easy to access a free app like the Breath Source and start learning and following classes, and then you just practice it. You don't need any tools, you don't need any special gym. You can do breathwork anywhere you are, right? Your breath is always with you. I just did a TEDx talk, and a part of it was the breath. The name of my TEDx walk, Unconventional Prescription to Improve Your Social Skills. And an unconventional prescription was a breath or a reset breath, because most of us, including myself, that's why I did the talk, we're not in the present moment, right? We're always either worried about the future or replacing all hope in the future. And so, especially when it comes to your kids and your family and your loved ones, many times we have dinner with them, or we go on the boat with them, or we go hiking with them, but we're not present in the moment, right? And so I think everybody has that experience, and it becomes more and more important to be present in the moment, because that's when you live, right? And so a reset breath is a quick tool to pull yourself back into the present moment, and you can use that, during a family dinner or before a business meeting or a seminar or a class or whatever it is. And so, yes, breath is something that has tremendous positive effect on the body and the mind, and is very easy to start implementing and very cost effective. Doesn't cost anything.
That's true. Yeah, and you can do it right in the moment. I remember
Mhm.
using that to calm myself down right before I would get on stage. I would realize, oh, I'm back here holding my breath because I'm nervous. And I would just
Yes.
start taking the really deep breaths in through the nose. And it's like this instant calming anti-anxiety effect that would allow me to do then what I needed to do. It was just accessing that in the moment. I want to talk a little bit about focus because you hit on something I think that's a huge problem, and that is, and I'm not saying social media is all bad or anything like that, but we are in this time where our attention spans are so short, and I'm guilty of it. I get distracted. I start to do something, and then I start scrolling, through Instagram.
Yeah.
What's that? What's that video? And I'm down a rabbit hole. What? How do you help people create more focus? What can they do to bring back a skill that I think we've almost lost?
Yeah, I do a lot. First, I have to educate them a little bit on why they're in a brain fog, why they can't focus, why they're procrastinating, why they can't start a job, why they can't finish a job. And so the key word there may be dopamine overload, right? So we have five intelligence hormones: dopamine, the reward hormone, epinephrine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, and serotonin. And when those five hormones are in balance and at optimal levels, that's when we're in the zone, which is the opposite of not being focused. That's when we win a race. That's when we perform at our best. That's when we crush our sales goals. That's when we crush a presentation, right? And we think that in the zone is just for athletes, but no, everybody can learn how to get in the zone on demand, and that's really what my latest book is about. But when you're talking about focus, um, really, I actually go a few steps back before I start talking about that focus. Um, Many people can't focus because, yeah, let's finish the dopamine overload. Let's finish the dopamine overload. So when those five hormones are in balance, that's when we're in the zone. Now, when they're out of balance, for example, a dopamine overload, too much dopamine compared to the others, that's when we get in trouble, because a dopamine overload causes a brain fog, lack of focus, lack of attention, procrastination, etc. And so the first thing for people that can't focus is looking at, okay, you're probably in a dopamine overload. Dopamine is the reward hormone. So if our brain squirts a little dopamine, it feels good, like getting a pat on the back. So that's why a lot of people reach for sugary foods and drinks, because sugar gives you that dopamine squirt, right? So unhealthy foods, energy drinks, coffee, you name it, stimulants, that would be a dopamine hit. But like you mentioned, social media is a huge dopamine hit today. And that's why most of us spend more time on social media than we want to, even, or are addicted to it. Because unconsciously, again, if somebody likes our comment or our post or hearts our Instagram, it squirts some dopamine. And so we seek more of it, consciously or unconsciously. And so that's why we spend too much time on there. So what we need to do to balance those hormones again, is to maybe upgrade our diet and stay away from these stimulants, but at the same time regain control of social media. As you said, there's many benefits to social media, especially if you need to do research or you're into marketing. But we need to be in control of it, not the other way around. And once we regain that control and we're aware of the dopamine overload and we can adjust it, then we can back into a balance of our intelligence hormones, and that will allow us to focus. But there's a lot more that we need to do, right? If you look today at people that can't focus, one of the first questions I ask is, where do you do your homework? Where do you work? And many times they just answer, oh, in the living room or on the kitchen table, or, we're in an office, but it's cubicles. I hear everybody else. Well, we got to go back to basics, which is a designated workspace at home or at the office. And then if people around, you're going to tell them, do not disturb me, close the door, put a sign up there. And then there's all these types of things which we need to learn to control. So if I'm going to work on a project for the next few hours, I'm going to turn this off, because this only should be used to your benefit. Meaning, if I need information from somebody or I need to go online, I'll use it. But I don't want anybody else to interrupt me while I'm working on my project to their benefit. So I'm going to turn it on airplane mode or off, or put it in another room, right? And so we really need to consciously eliminate those distractions. And then there's certain techniques and tips and strategies that may help one person, maybe not the next. A very known one is the Pomodoro technique, which basically says you're going to work 20 or 25 minutes, very focused on a task, no distractions, no phone, no people around. And then the only thing that's there is a timer. When the timer goes off, 25 minutes, now you have a mandatory 5-minute break. And you repeat that cycle 4 or 5 times. And a lot of people get an amazing amount of work done by following a little simple strategy like that, right? So it's about eliminating distractions, controlling your environment, right? And making sure you're not in a dopamine overload. So those would be the first strategies and things that we put in place to get focused again and to be productive again.
That is really good advice. I know I've gotten to where I silence my phone, I turn it over or completely turn it off, will not look at it. I've done the timer. I had a coach that called it, I think, Pomodoro, where
Yeah,
you would do just like
Pomodoro
brain
technique.
dump, yeah, for so many minutes, and then you would, take a breather and go again in these cycles. I have found that extremely, extremely helpful, because I think some of this, like adult ADHD that people talk about, I've wondered how much is actually just all of the distractions that we
Yeah,
weren't
it's
really
it's
deal
overstimulation, right? And then the other
with.
thing I think is the reason why a lot of people can't focus is because we don't have a purpose in life. During the pandemic, a colleague of mine asked me to help out with pre-screening calls for people who were seeking medical marijuana cards. And I said, sure, I'll help out. And it was a good thing, because I talked to hundreds of people every week with anxiety, depression, PTSD, ADHD, and you name it. And so obviously I'm not a proponent of any medications such as Ritalin, Wellbutrin, and especially Adderall, right? And so, yes, there's therapies and smart drugs out there, but I found an underlying cause. And that's why I incorporated in my latest book too. A lot of these people have no purpose in life. What I mean with that is they are just going through the motions, going to work, getting extra work from the boss, rushing home, bringing the kids to soccer, dealing with the partner, and they never can get caught up, including financially many times. And so if you're always putting out fires and you're going with the motions and you don't know what tomorrow brings, next week, next month, or next year brings, and you put yourself in that situation, I would be worried. All that uncertainty, I would be fearful, which then translates in what? Anxiety, depression, and other mental conditions, right? So what I do with many of my mentees now is I really talk about purpose in life. Because unfortunately, the day we're born, we're pushed in a certain direction by society. We got to go to school, got to go to college, and then we got to work for somebody else till we're 65, and then there's the golden years, right, which never happen. Or our parents and teachers push us in a certain direction. If dad's a lawyer, he probably wants you to go to law school. If mom's a doctor, they probably want you to go to med school. And so I talked to somebody who's actually a very successful eye surgeon, and he's very good at what he does, but he was pushed in that direction. He makes a good living. He's content, but he's not happy. He's not fulfilling his purpose. But he didn't realize that until I started talking and working with him. What is your purpose? What brings fire in your stomach? What is it that you want to bring to the world? What is your superpower? And so many of us don't know their superpower. Some of us do, but are barely tapping into it. So my job is to unleash that superpower. And so purpose of life becomes important. And we're talking about focus. But once we have our purpose, now we got to get in control of our life. That means is we need to script our life almost, like in control of our agenda. We need to know, set our goals, our dreams, our purpose, surrounding ourselves with the people that we need to reach our highest potential. And when we start scripting and being in control of our agenda and our calendar, and we have a plan, what we're doing is we're really creating control of our life, and control creates clarity, and clarity omits all stress. So many times, by identifying that purpose and really starting to grab control again of our own life, a lot of those mental illnesses just disappear without therapy, without drugs.
Purpose is so important. I'm really, really glad you hit on that. In fact, that was the title of my book, was Finding Purpose in the Pause. Now, it was a book about
Yeah,
going through menopause and life's not over. That's the time. Okay, now
that's when
you've
it can
got,
start. The kids are out of the house. Maybe you have extra time. Now it's time for you. Find that passion, find that purpose, and you're going to live so much longer because it's that passion fire. Even if you have a plan that takes 7 years to reach your goal, it doesn't matter, because you're going to make those daily incremental steps that give you fulfillment that you may never have felt in the past.
and it becomes more important, I think, as we age to have
Yeah,
purpose, not less. And I think in our society, we tend to think, oh, goals and having a purpose and having a direction, oh, that's for younger people. But I find so many people, I think, get depressed because they just stop. They just go, okay, this is it. This is
yeah,
life. That's it. And now I'm going to take medications and grow old or whatever. And it doesn't have to be that way. And finding that purpose, I think it can improve our physical health because it's improving our mental health,
sure.
and you start to really want to live and take care of yourself.
It's either a vicious cycle down, and if you choose not to, it's a vicious cycle up. And there comes the mindset again, right?
Yes, we can't go anywhere without it. When I was reading through your material and background, I saw something about a pill or a supplement that's in place of Adderall. Can you speak
Yes,
into
so
that a little?
during that same period, there's so many people, even young people, on Adderall. And when you look at the possible side effects of Adderall, there's increased heart rate, increased risk for heart conditions, psychosis, seizures. It's not something that I ever can stand behind. Now, nonetheless to say, many of those people I talked to, it did help them to focus and get some work done. So it does seem to work, but it's at a big price. And so they call those drugs smart drugs. Now, there are natural alternatives, two smart drugs called nootropics. And nootropics are all natural without any jittery effects or any side effects. So I decided to look deeper into nootropics because I was talking to all these people and I wanted to find an alternative for them so it would help them focus, but without the possible adverse reactions and addiction, because Adderall is very addictive. So I found there's many out there, nootropics. In Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese herbal medicine, there's many compounds that have been proven to help with focus, memory, productivity, and things like that. But I specifically bumped on something that is now called biocitroid, which is a patented terpene from a specific type of blood orange found in the southeast region of Asia. And at 30 milligrams of or higher, this terpene called biocitroid is able to pass the blood-brain barrier. So it works within 30 minutes. Now, as you know, most supplements take several weeks to accumulate in your body and hopefully have some positive effect. So this works very quickly. And then I started talking to the people that had basically the rights or the patents to that ingredient in the United States, but they didn't really have a final product yet. So I started helping them with adding other ingredients to it to synergize with biocitroid to really have a good alternative to these smart drugs. So we decided to add three ingredients. Number one, L-tyrosine, which is a known amino acid that helps with memory. And then we added phenylalanine, which is a neuroagent, again, helps with photographic memory, focus, and those types of things. And then the last one, probably the most important one, is phosphatidylcholine, which is a healthy fat in our body and our brain, but phosphatidylcholine stimulates NGF, nerve growth factor, which means it helps with the formation of new brain cells, neurotransmission, and connections. So what we found is that the combination of those four ingredients, we found it was able to really balance those five intelligence hormones and optimize those levels to help people really get into the zone and focus without any jittery effects like caffeine or anything else, or without any side effects. So we helped a fair amount of people getting off the Adderall and other drugs and use this alternative, which is called Focus Plus. A lot of top athletes use it too, just to have that little bit of an edge, a little faster anticipation to the ball, etc., because you're really into the zone, right? And but I'm going to also be honest, it's not as strong probably as Adderall, but for many people it's enough to replace. And it works for some people very well, and other people really don't feel a difference, and that's just the way it is. So for your listeners, I just would say try a free sample. Go to trysmartpill.com. You'll get a free sample. Try it. If it works, you can use it. If it doesn't work, please don't waste your money, right? But trysmartpill.com would be something natural that can't harm you, that may help you with focus, attention span, things like that.
Yeah, things like that are definitely worth a try. And I imagine if they're combined with other things like you're getting your hydration and you're doing your breathing and some other
Sure. Yes.
station techniques, and it could all, potentially work together for some people depending on the individual.
Yes. Good. No, these are ingredients anyway, like other ingredients. I mean, if you talk about brain health, we need to incorporate in our diet, we need to increase amino acids that help rebuild damaged areas, especially if you're thinking about Parkinson's and stroke, or those types of things, are preventing dementia and Alzheimer's. So we need those essential amino acids for the brain, but we also need neuroprotective agents. We're talking about urolithin A, which is basically in grapefruits. We're talking about maybe even methylene blue, which now has been showing to have neuroprotective components, and also is able to eat away on amyloid plaques. So those are some, newer biohacking compounds that are being studied and having to have some positive effects on the brain. And hydrogen. And that's why I drink hydrogen water every day, has so many health benefits. But hydrogen is the unlike any other antioxidant like vitamin C, E, D, zinc, selenium, glutathione, they're all charged. So yes, they're important for our health, but they cannot enter a cell. Hydrogen can enter the cell, and it's the only thing that can protect our RNA, DNA, proteins, mitochondria. And so when we're thinking about the brain, if we have hydrogen to protect our brain cells, again, it's going to really help against the toxicities that cause things like dementia and Alzheimer. So there's things that we can do besides just taking a nootropic for focus that will help with repairing DNA and protecting our integrity of ourselves in the body and the brain.
Now, where should we be getting this water? Is it something that is produced or you purchase, or how
Yeah,
do you get?
there's a few things. I have a unit. I'm looking at it right now, sitting there. So all the water we drink first is filtered. It's clean, of course, and then it infuses it with hydrogen gas. But you have to drink it immediately. That's why it's at home. Then I have something that's called an Echo to go, which is a bottle. And it's actually a higher concentration of hydrogen that it produces once you put water in there. But then you have to put water in there, and you don't want to put tap water in there. So you need to put clean water or mineral water in there, and then it will infuse it with hydrogen gas so you can drink it when you're traveling or when you're not home or you're at work. So those are gadgets that you can buy. And then there's hydrogen tablets. It's almost like a supplement that you put in your water. But those have a metallic taste, and you really don't know how much parts per million you get. But those are the different things that we can do to consume hydrogen water. If you want to go to a good compilation of studies, you go to hydrogenstudies.com. There's even a search bar. So, for example, if you have Crohn's disease or digestive issues or Parkinson's, then you can put that in there, and it will pop up the studies related to that condition, etc., and how hydrogen helps with that. So hydrogenstudies.com. But on my website, I don't manufacture any products or sell anything. But on my website, I have a shop here page, and all the things that I do and recommend are on there with discounts for people. So if you go to biohackingunlimited.com, which is my website, you go to the shop here page, you find the system that I have, the Echo 2 water system, which is not cheap, but in the long run, there's no consumable. So if you use it for a lifetime, it is cheap. Depends how you look at it. But then the Echo 2 Go water bottle is very affordable, but then you got to make sure you put clean water in it. So now you got to buy mineral water, or at least have another system at home that cleans the water. Or you can start with the supplement and the hydrogen tablets, which is still better than nothing. But yeah, hydrogen becomes then also very important.
This is very helpful. I'm going to look into this because I didn't know this about hydrogen. I'm very particular about my water being clean, but
Yeah.
I did not have hydrogen piece of this. So very, very interesting. Now, I want to touch a little bit on nutrition. What do you have a nutritional philosophy, or do you feel people are bio individual and might do better with different types of diet? There's so much out there right now. We've got
Yeah.
the carnivore, the paleo, the vegan. It's confusing. It's confusing
I
for
know, and a
people,
lot
I
of it
think.
is propaganda because everybody's trying to sell stuff, right? That's number one. So then we really gotta look at science, but we can't do that either because half of the science today is propaganda. They use science as a propagating tool, so we gotta be careful, right? Number one, but we gotta start using common sense, and that's why I really, looked at animals in the wild myself, and many times I tell people to do that too. Whatever your doctor says or anybody else, start thinking about what a wild lion, a wild elephant, a gorilla, an eagle, I mean the wild, not our domesticated animals, what they do. And those is instincts from Mother Nature, and that's the truth, right? So when we look at conventional medicine, it's usually quite the opposite of what we should do almost each and every single time. It's exact the opposite of what would be health promoting. But when it comes to diet, yes, I don't believe necessarily in all the things that comes out about different blood type and different this and different that. I believe we're all in a different stage of life, and we have a different wear and tear on our body. And so based on where you are, I believe there's priorities to get you back to normal and then to optimal, as I explained earlier. But from a pure biology, physiology point of view, I'm a strong proponent of no meat. And I'm a strong proponent of wholesome fruits and vegetables and doing what Mother Nature provided us. And I have discussions about meat all the time. I have very smart doctors that I discuss it with, and also people that obviously, when we talk about the people that go to the gym, they still are doing their chicken breast, lean chicken breast, and broccoli, and everybody copies it. But I kind of smile at that a little bit, and there's different reasons for that. Just to name a few, if we purely look at the difference between herbivores and carnivores from a biological, physiological point of view, we need to look at the jaw. We need to look at our teeth. We need to look at the digestive tract and the length of it. We need to look at our digestive enzymes. And when we look at and the size of our liver, and we look at all those things, we always fit very clearly into the herbivore class. That's just our biology. Nobody really can dispute that, period. The second thing that we want to basically look at is that habitually we're omnivores, but biologically we're herbivores, period. Number two, I would say I always get the same objections. What about B12? B12 comes only from animals and we need it. Well, you heard that, but maybe you should look a little bit further, because B12 does not come from animals. B12 comes from bacteria that are found in our ground, basically dirt, and also in fresh streams and waters. That's where animals get it from. But guess what today? The meat you eat, those animals were not grazing grass and dirt, and they were not drinking from streams. So both meat eaters and non-meat eaters today are deficient in B12. So we all need to supplement with B12. And then the second objection I usually get is, what about our ancestors? Well, you got to look at our ancestors, and you got to apply modern day technology to see if the first conclusions the scientists took were actually accurate, and they weren't. Just like now, we have something called, we can do DNA testing, and that's why in the crime world we go back to old cases and solve them, because now we can test DNA, right? And so the same thing happened when we initially found bones and from our ancestors. We also found tools that were made to kill mammoths and other animals. So the conclusion at the time was, we are meat eaters, right? But now they went back to the same bones and remnants of our ancestors and measured strontium levels. And so the conclusion is universal amongst scientists, is that we are mainly herbivores. The reason why we had tools to kill animals, because if there are no plants and trees, because there's a snow age or ice age, then we need to eat, and, we need to survive. So now it's about killing other animals because there's no other food available, or it's about we need more calories to survive this harsh winter. But it's not what we meant to do. It's just in, specific situations, let's say it that way. And then the last part I want to bring up there for people to consider is that our ancestors only lived to be 25 years old. The only concern of our ancestors was to procreate, to make babies, so to reserve our species. But they didn't have to worry about the long-term effects and cardiovascular health and strokes and cancers of decades of wrongdoing and wrong eating. They didn't have to worry about that. They died when they were 25, so nobody really cared about long-term effects, right? But now we live to be 70, 80, 90, 100 years old. So now we do have to look at the long-term effects of eating meat and eating the wrong foods. And to that extent, I like everybody to just do research on PubMed or anybody, because every time you will find a study that shows a positive effect of a diet on any medical diagnosis or our biology or our health, it is always a plant-based diet. It is always a plant-based diet. Now, having said all that and my beliefs, I do have people that I know, that I'm dear to and know very well, that are on a meat-based diet, and they say they feel excellent on it. But they cannot explain, they cannot discuss with me why that would be. And maybe it's just short term, but meat is dead flesh. I mean, if you think about when that animal was killed, we got to go 2-3 weeks back. If that animal would have just been laying there, within 2 days, it would turn to dust from the bacteria. It would turn brown and black, and the bacteria would eat it and turn back to dust. But we bleach it. We pour bleach over it and hang it in a cooler, right? And then it gets distributed to the wholesale centers, and then it ends up in your supermarket. But then, as you know, they'll inject it to plummet back up, with fillers, and then they'll give it a color. So your salmon looks nice and pink, and your meat looks blooded and red. But That's really not possible in reality if it's been that animal was killed 2-3 weeks ago. And then we go home and we cook it. If we look at a real flesh eater like a lion, it attacks it and eats it right away, and not just the lean meat, everything, the organs, the feathers, the bones, whatever it eats it. That's a real flesh eater, and they get the benefits from it because it's right there, it's fresh, it's alive, the adrenaline is still in the blood, right? But we're not flesh eaters, because when we see an animal, we're not thinking, yummy, I want to eat that thing. We'd rather pet it than eat it, right? So I think there's a very obvious case that we are herbivores and we shouldn't eat meat. I think it takes 6 hours to digest. The proteins are denatured because it's been dead for so long. And the animal usually is the middleman, right? Because where do the cows their calcium from? Where do they get the proteins from? It's all from the grass and the greeny leaves and everything that Mother Nature provides us. So that's my little tantrum on my.
So with the how our food is processed, the ultra processed nature of food is such a problem. And
Yes.
I do see, I've had clients want to go plant based, but what they tend to do, and I don't know if you've seen this too, is they go to, let's say, I don't know, Whole Foods or something, and they buy all the packaged vegan foods as opposed to
No.
actually eating plants.
Yeah, no,
That's
and that's when the meat eaters attack, come back, because there's no dairy and no meat in it does not mean it's healthy, right? So I got to be very
right.
careful. I don't like to classify myself. People say you must be vegan, you must be vegetarian. No, I'm just aware. I don't classify myself, and it's not that I never eat meat. I don't eat meat at home, but if I go out with friends and I crave a fillet, I'll eat one. But I'm aware, I know it's a burden on my digestive system, and I'll need to make up for it. So I don't like to classify myself because I like to live, but I like to be aware of what I eat. Classifying yourself is never good.
Never. I
Never.
agree with you. I always say to my husband all the time, I can't stand labels. I don't want to
Nope.
be labeled. I don't want to be put in
Nope.
a box. But
You can't.
awareness, yeah, that's something I could easily wrap my mind around.
That's
Well,
right.
I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're so busy. Before we wrap up, a couple of different questions for you. Was there anything you'd like the listener to know that we didn't discuss? And secondly, how can they follow you, work with you, learn more about you?
Well, there's so much, right? But I would say for your listeners, it's, and your listeners may already know, but we really gotta question conventional medicine. Their toolbox is so limited. We basically have three things: medications, injections, and surgeries. And we need to understand that when conventional medicine says we can help you, that means that the emphasis is they can't help you, but we really got to go get other advice from functional medicine doctors and people that do holistic medicine, because there's hundreds and other things out there that may help you. Number one, as long as your body is alive, it will strive for perfect health. We just have to put it in the right conditions so that it heal itself, give it the right tools. And if you're not in a health field, there's many people that can push you, or push in that right direction for you to regain control of your health. Health is always holistic. You cannot just chase symptoms or go to a specialist that only knows about the liver or only the kidneys. That's just laughable. You just need to understand that our body is very complex and that we cannot interfere with that. Any interference usually is detrimental. It has a negative impact on our body. So we just got to put it in the right conditions, because drugs don't cure, therapies don't cure, food doesn't cure, supplements don't cure, a healthy diet doesn't cure. Only our body can heal itself. We just need to put it in the right conditions so it can do that.
Beautiful. Love the holistic approach. I'm 100% on board with that. Definitely running from one specialist to then I learned that with having autoimmune, you go to the rheumatologist, but then they're not in communication with the nurse practitioner, and it's disjointed, and you really don't get
And even if
what you
they,
need.
yeah, even if they did communicate, they're focusing on a detail that's not important for healing. They got to look at the body as a whole and see what's going on and get it back in balance so the body can do the job. They think they can do the job. no, they'll never will be able to do the job.
Yes, and question. I love that you said that. I say it constantly. Question everything. I love to have different viewpoints on my podcast for that reason, because I want people to be aware, come to their own conclusions, not just take things at face value, especially if it's coming from, a pharmaceutical company or an
Yeah.
advertisement for a pharmaceutical. Do your homework. So that's so good, Dr. Mike. And where can they follow you to learn more?
I guess the best place to go is just my website, biohackingunlimited.com. All my books are there. My mentorship programs are there. You can sign up to my free newsletter. So anything you may need, our Costa Rica VIP retreat is coming up. It's biohacking with breathwork. You should look at it, Carol. You will love it. Got just a few spots left. So anything that you may need is on the website, biohackingunlimited.com.
Ooh, that retreat sounds Costa Rica, you said?
It's coming up next week, August
Oh,
31st till September the 5th. Biohacking with breathwork. We got a few spots left. Check it out.
I will check it out. Thank you so much for being on the show, Dr. Mike. I've enjoyed our conversation. I know the listeners have taken so much value from what you shared. So thank you so much.
Thank you too, Carol, because everybody thanks me, but it's people like you that put their time and effort forward to spread the messages, spread the information, and help as many people as we can. So thank you also.
And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.